If you are trying to pick or get a closer look at some super special Roman Szmal watercolors, you're curious to know what the favorite watercolors of other artists are, or you just want to see pretty colors, then this is the video for you. I will link everything in the description, so if you find a color that you fall in love with, then be sure to check that out. Hey, welcome back to my channel. I make weekly art tutorials, paint-alongs and vlogs, and in this video I'm going to swatch out the favorite top 30 Roman Szmal colors, and these are colors that you guys have recommended, suggested in comments, suggested on a community tab and on Instagram. As well as these, honestly there are so many more beautiful colors in the color range, and I will be swatching out the entire Roman Szmal range, and I will link that for you once that is done. But for now, I thought it would be nice to just show you some of the highlights as chosen and picked by you. I made a list of all of them. I highlighted some that are also my favorite, and I have written them all out in this really cute swatch card which I drew out. One of the things that I love about swatching, and I'll link the video for you, is doing it in different ways depending on what I feel like. And I like to have some sort of black line or black ink so that I can test out the opacity of the watercolor, so basically so I can see if it leaves any residue over the ink or whether it kind of becomes really nice and transparent and I can layer over it nicely. So I've created a whole separate video as to how I do swatches and why I do it, and also how I arrange my swatch books. So if you want to see that, then be sure to check out that video. I really love this super cute swatch card or swatch sheet if you like, and I actually have a black and white version that has none of the pigment names or information on it, and I will make that available for all my Ko-fi members so that if you want to print it out and use it to do your own swatches, you're able to do so. And likewise, if you just want to have the doodles on their own, you can have that as well. I kind of did it for myself, but it ends up being beneficial for you as well. So this first one that we're starting off with is one of my favorites as well. This is Quinacridone Gold Hue, which is PR102 and PY150, and I love it because it is so bright and like luminous. I think that's the best way that I can describe it, really luminous. So this tends to be my warm yellow, and this is one of the colors that is almost finished in my Roman Szmal palette, my original Roman Szmal palette. It is transparent, medium granulating and staining, and it is beautiful. Then next to it we have what Roman Szmal call Quinacridone Gold, which is also a hue, and it has PY150 and PO48. So this one is actually being discontinued because PO48 unfortunately is being discontinued in watercolors. Again, another favorite, but I am quite happy with this one, so all is not lost because Roman Szmal have created like a good alternative for it. I think one of the key differences is though that the Quin Gold hue, so this one is medium granulating, whereas the Quinacridone Gold with PO48 instead of PR102 is not granulating. It is also transparent, and both of them are 8 out of 8 light fastness. Then next we have Naples Yellow Light, and this was one that kept getting mentioned. I can't tell if it's being mentioned as a favorite per se, but quite a few people are really curious about all the Naples yellows, so I'm going to swatch them out because they were mentioned so many times. And first we have Naples Yellow Light, which is PW6, PY53 and PBR24. One of the wonderful things about Roman Szmal that you'll notice is that they reactivate wonderfully. I suspect it's because of the honey that they have in there as well. It does mean that sometimes they can be sticky when you are unwrapping them, and if you find that that is happening to you, a good way to kind of counteract that is to put the paints in the freezer for a few minutes before you unwrap them, and then the wrappers come off really nicely. Perhaps unsurprisingly, this Naples Yellow Light is, I want to say semi-opaque, but what have they called it? Oh yeah, they've called it semi-opaque as well. It's 8 out of 8 light fastness, medium staining and non-granulating. And then next to it we have Naples Yellow Reddish, and this is made up with PW6, PY53, PBR24, so pretty much all the same as Naples Yellow Light, but in addition to that there is also PR264, which makes it lean a little bit warmer, as you can see. Again, to me, it's looking semi-opaque. So they say, yeah, semi-opaque, medium staining, non-granulating, and 8 out of 8 light fastness. And then we have Naples Yellow Deep. Now this one is in a separate palette. Palette number 2, I have Naples Yellow Deep, and this is just PBR24. So initially I wasn't going to swatch it because I was like, but I've seen the PBR24 in quite a few mixtures. I was quite interested to see what it looked like on its own. It's probably like an in-between. It's not quite as warm as the Reddish. It almost looks like a yellow ochre, like a warmer yellow ochre. It's quite nice actually, or a sienna-ish colour. So it is staining, non-granulating and semi-opaque, and again 8 out of 8 light fastness. And then we have the reds. So there was so much interest in the reds, which I'm quite surprised by because I don't tend to use reds quite that often. Before I swatch them out, can I gently remind you to hit the like button and to consider subscribing if you want to see more content like this. It's a free way which makes a huge difference to me, to my channel and to my art, so thank you in advance. The one that I always kind of go back to time and time again is Permanent Alizarin Crimson, which is PR176. So it's this right here. The one drawback I will say is that it's 7 out of 8 light fastness, so it's not the best light fastness even though it's the permanent version. And here we go. It's just so beautiful though. Look at that, so nice and rich. So it is a 7 out of 8 light fastness, highly staining, non-granulating and transparent, and it's absolutely beautiful. The next one has been requested and mentioned so many times, and my understanding is because it's almost like exclusive to Roman Szmal, and that is Cherry Quinacridone Red. And this is PR209, and it is super bright. That's the thing, I thought this was like really bright and pinkish, and then it's all relative, isn't it? When you then swatch something as bright and vibrant as this, then you can compare them a little bit better. And this is beautiful, highly requested for this video. Loads of people kept mentioning it, and I can see why. Like, it is really beautiful. It is 8 out of 8 light fastness, so it might be a good replacement for the Permanent Alizarin Crimson. Staining, medium granulating and transparent. And there was like a lot of interest between all the quinacridones, or the majority of the quinacridones. So next we have Quinacridone Magenta, which is PR122. And look at that. Again, really bright, luminous, staining color. And I've created a video where I talk about watercolor pigments and what all these things like staining, granulating, all that good stuff actually means. So if you're kind of like confused by it, or you want a refresher, or you don't know perhaps the different properties that are associated with different watercolors and you want to know, then be sure to check out that video that I'll link for you because it can be quite helpful. This Quinacridone Magenta, as I've mentioned, is PR122. It is 8 out of 8 light fastness. It is staining, non-granulating and transparent, as expected for quinacridones. Then next we have Quinacridone Pink, which is again PR122. It'll be interesting to see the similarities. So this is slightly cooler, and what I mean by that is that it leans a little bit more towards blue. It's a little bit more purple, and again it is beautiful. So it's 8 out of 8 light fastness. It is staining as expected. It is transparent and it is non-granulating. And then we have Quinacridone Fuchsia. So this is PR202. It is 8 out of 8 light fastness. This is lovely. It's more toned, like toned down. Does that make sense? Like it's a little bit deeper and darker. It's really nice. So it is 8 out of 8 light fastness. It is staining, medium granulating and semi-transparent. And then we have Quinacridone Purple. And this is PV55. And really lovely purple. Look at that. There are some really nice purples in this set actually, which I will show you. I tend to like, I love purples, which I didn't fully appreciate until I started painting. That and greens was another unknown surprise. So that's Quinacridone Purple, PV55. It is 8 out of 8 light fastness, medium granulating, non-staining and semi-transparent. Then next we have Quinacridone Violet, and this is PV19. Beautiful. I really like muted down, stunning, you know, deep and dark purples. This is a little reddish. It's almost like leaning towards burgundy, but it's so stunning. You can still see my drawing underneath, nice and clear. So it is 8 out of 8 light fastness. It is staining, non-granulating and semi-transparent. And then next we have Perylene Violet, which is beautiful. Again, even moodier. Let me show you. So this is PV29, and look at that, a really nice moody reddish purple. It is PV29, 8 out of 8 light fastness, staining, non-granulating and transparent. And next we have a Potter's Pink. Now, I must admit, I had seen loads of swatches of different brands and Potter's Pink, and I didn't think this would be one that I would like, because I tend to like paints that are more tinted, that have like more strength to them. But I must admit, I can see the appeal of this one. I can't speak about the rest, but this one. So it is PR233, and look at that. I had to put it next to the Perylene Violet because to me there's like a little bit of a similarity between them. It is lower tinting than the other colours, but it is stunning and it granulates really, really nicely. It's got like a I was trying to remember this during the live stream. The word I was looking for was like vintage. It's got like a really nice vintage feel to it, for me at least. 8 out of 8 light fastness. It's medium staining, granulating and semi-transparent. And then next we have Caput Mortum, which is PR102. It is 8 out of 8 light fastness, medium staining, granulating and semi-transparent. This is a colour that seems relatively popular on YouTube. I'd heard quite a few people mention it. That to me looks opaque. Can you see the black underneath? Because I'm struggling. This is why I recommend swatching things yourself, because it can give you a better insight into how the paints work. And what one person may call semi-transparent is not the same as what another would call it, evidently. Because yeah, I'm double checking. This is definitely semi-transparent, but for me, that looks semi-opaque at best. I'd go as far as saying opaque, especially like we've lost all those leaves over there. Then next we go on to the purples, so even more purples. This is Mineral Violet, which gets a lot of love on the internet, especially for those who love Daniel Smith's Rose of Ultramarine. It is PB29 and PB19. It is a beautiful color that just granulates in such a lovely, lovely way. And the key thing with granulating colors is to wait for them to dry before you before you cast judgment and, you know, decide on whether it's a color that you like, because it will change as it dries. If you want it to really granulate, then, you know, use it on rough paper, add lots of water, and then once you've done that, just leave it alone. Don't heat it up, just let it kind of sink into the paper as it wants. So it is 8 out of 8 light fastness, medium staining, granulating as we've touched on, and transparent. And then next we have Misty Morning, which is PG50 and PV19. It is medium staining, granulating, semi-transparent, but 7 and light fastness. So not the best light fastness, but not fugitive either. This is Misty Morning. This one, I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw it, used it, swatched it, I was a bit underwhelmed. And then when it started drying, I was like, okay, I get it. I finally get it. I understand why people keep talking about this color. I know it's kind of said as semi-transparent. For me, it's leaning a little bit more towards semi-opaque. That will differ from person to person and how they use it and what you consider to be what. But I'm just adding plenty of water so that we can see it. Or maybe it is semi-transparent. So I think like in mass tone, so when I put it down heavy, it is semi-opaque. But then when you actually water it down a little bit. And then we have Shadow Violet Light. This is 7 out of 10 light fastness. It is PB36, PB29, PR176. It is staining, granulating and semi-transparent, and it is beautiful. Loads of people talk about Shadow Violet, and to be fair, I think that's the one that I got initially. But then after doing the swatches myself and just like being curious to see what the light version would look like, I'd say that the light version doesn't get quite enough love as it should, because it is really, really pretty and again granulates so nicely. So I will show you Shadow Violet as well, because it is a known favourite. Oh, Shadow Violet Light was an unexpected surprise. Now we have Shadow Violet, which is a color that I do have in my palette and I do keep going back to. It is PG50, PB29 and PB19. And this is a color that when I first swatched out, I was confused by. I didn't really understand why it was so popular, why people kept mentioning it when it looked like an ugly grey color. And this color depicts the, you know, don't judge a book by its cover, don't judge a granulating watercolor paint until it's actually dried kind of thing. Because as it dries, it just changes so much. It goes from this color, which I'm really not a fan of, into like a beautiful, beautiful color that you will see in a few moments. Okay, next, this is a loved color. I think no one apart from Polish people have been able to say it correct. I'm going to try my best. I've asked a friend of mine to send me a voice note, so I've been practicing. The closest I can get to it is Przybysz grey. Przybysz grey, which has PB29, PR177 and PG26, and it is popular with good reason because again it is stunning, and all these kind of greys to me are kind of like purpley greys, if that makes sense. Really, really, really lovely. And I'm curious to know whether you have a favorite amongst them. It is 7 to 8 out of 8 light fastness, medium staining, granulating and semi-transparent. And as I've already mentioned, it has PB29, PR177 and PG26. Beautiful, beautiful color. Then we have Shadow Grey, and this is, ooh, look at that, PB29, PBR7 and PB19. I think one of the key things about any and all of these colors is that they are very much, for the most part, like convenience colors. So it's not necessarily colors that everyone should rush out and get, but they are colors that perhaps you would get if you want to add like a little something, you know, to your art. Not necessarily like the first 6 colors that you should get or the first 30 colors that you should get, but they are like really special, beautiful, stunning colors. So the Shadow Grey is 8 out of 8 light fastness. It's medium granulating, non-staining and semi-opaque. And then we have Payne's Grey. It has pigment numbers PBK9, PB27, 8 out of 8 light fastness, medium staining, non-granulating and semi-opaque, and PR264. And again, beautiful. So this, compared to the others, leans more blue than purple. A really nice deep color. I'm just going to lift a little bit here so that we can actually see what is written. Then we go to the blues. There are so many beautiful blues, I must admit, but in terms of like the blues that are like really special, 2 stand out and 2 kept getting mentioned. The first one is Ocean Blue. So Ocean Blue has PBR24 and PB153. That was one of the reasons I wanted to swatch out the Naples Yellow Deep, so that I could see how it plays a role in all these colors. And with this Ocean Blue is a beautiful granulating color. I'm gonna add plenty of pigment so that we can see how it behaves. It is 8 out of 8 light fastness. It's staining, medium granulating and semi-transparent. And then next, this was a new one to me, and this is Cobalt Sea Blue, which is PB28. It is 8 out of 8 light fastness, medium staining, granulating and semi-opaque. Try not to make them touch so that I don't contaminate them. And then we head on to the greens. Honestly, I love the greens. I love them so much. It was hard for me to narrow it down to 6 greens, but I just about managed. So first we have Perylene Green, and this is PBK31. Like a, oh, don't touch. It's a really nice moody green. It is 8 out of 8 light fastness, medium staining, non-granulating and semi-transparent. Next we have Aquarius Green. Now this was a colour that as soon as I swatched it in the Roman Szmal Urban Sketching Kit, I fell in love with it, and in fact created a whole video swatching out beautiful greens that I could get from that palette. So if you haven't seen that video, I will link it for you. The swatching video is an exclusive for my Ko-fi members, but the actual palette review video is open for everybody. So this Aquarius Green has PY150, PBR25 and PB29, and it is beautiful, like a really, really nice moody olivey kind of green. And again, it granulates, so watch it change as the video goes on because it is honestly stunning. It is a colour that I believe is exclusive to Roman Szmal, hence the name Aquarius green. It is 8 out of 8 light fastness, staining, granulating and semi-transparent. Then next we have Hooker's Green. Now this is a colour I keep going back to, and it's not necessarily the like sexiest of colours, but it is one that to me is a staple and that resembles what I would want from a sap green. It has PY 150 and PB 27, and look at that. It's like a beautiful run-of-the-mill versatile green, especially for someone who like me loves doing florals, botanicals, foliage. It just really lends itself very well to that. It is 8 out of 8 light fastness, staining, non-granulating and transparent, and it's absolutely beautiful. Then next we have Olive Green Deep. This is one that again I was exposed to by you guys requesting it and wanting it swatched in the live stream. So it has PY 150, PBK9, PG 17 and PBR 25. It's such a lovely warm olivey green kind of colour, and there is a light and a dark version, and I'll quickly show you the swatches that I did of that. One of the key things about watching like swatches done live at the same time at normal time is that then you can also see how the paint not only changes, not only the drying shift, but how it moves on the page, you know. And I find that for the most part with the Roman Szmal, usually where I put it is where it stays. Like the movement is predictable, it's not crazy wild. And then we have Autumn Green. Now this is one of their new colours. It has PG 26, PY 150 and PR 122. It is 8 out of 8 light fastness, medium staining, granulating and semi-transparent. And it is beautiful. This is one to watch as it dries. I mean, it's already starting to do it, but watch it even more as it dries. Just add more water and lift it here so that we can see what it is. And then just let it do its thing. Oh, so pretty. And then we have Green Gold, and again this was one that was requested by you guys quite a lot, and it is PY 150, PY 129 and PG 36. It is 8 out of 8 light fastness, staining, non-granulating and transparent. As those dry, I will just highlight some of the color comparisons that we did during the live stream, and if you want to see the full live streams and all the conversations that went around these colors, then be sure to check out that video. But just to highlight some of the colors that we talked about, this is Olive Green Deep and Olive Green Light, and this was just basically highlighting the difference between the two, which I must admit there isn't a massive amount when looking at it swatched out. Both are 8 out of 8 light fastness, both are staining, both are granulating and both are semi-transparent. So this is perhaps one of the colours that I would say if you have one you don't necessarily need to have the other, although they are both beautiful. I kind of liked the depth that I could get with the deep one, which is why I ended up picking that as one of the top 30. But yeah, quite a few people asked about these two. Then when we look at the deep green gold and the green gold itself, again, very subtle, very subtle differences, if any at all. I kind of felt that the green gold could get a little bit deeper, and I kind of liked it watered down a little bit more. It's like a brighter yellow kind of color, which is why I ended up picking that. The key difference that I could see between these two, if you're interested, is that the deep green gold has just one pigment, which is PY 129, whereas the green gold has 3 pigments, PY 150, PY 129 and PG 36. Theoretically, this could have an impact when you're color mixing because the green gold has a lot more colors inside it. I don't know how clean the mixes will be. So if you like mixing quite a lot and this is a color that you would be using for mixing, the deep green gold might be a better option. Whereas if you want to use it as it is, you may, or watered down, then you may lean towards the green gold. Here we have the Perylene Green Deep, which is PBK 32, and the Perylene Green, just to kind of highlight the difference, because I think this was one of the main colors where there was a clear difference between the deep version and the normal version, unlike the others that we looked at. So it might be one to keep an eye out. And then here we have the different greens that we kind of swatched out just to have a look at. And the reason that I swatched out these 3 in particular was so that we could look at and review the differences between them, because to me this is a very bright sap green, almost like a phthalo green, or like a muted, like a yellow version of a phthalo green, if that makes sense. whereas the sap green light to me and the hooker's green look a bit more sap green-esque or what I want from a sap green color. And out of the two, I really like the depth that I could get with the hooker's green, which is why this one's my favorite. A quick point, because I know that sap green quite a lot of the time is people's favorite green, or a green that people tend to lean towards, but just remember that sap green, like any color, can be given any name, so it's better to have a look at the actual color and see if it's actually what you want, as opposed to just getting the sap green off the bat, because it may not be exactly what you're expecting. Don't forget to hit the like button and to consider subscribing. All these swatches are being done on 100% cotton watercolor paper after Astroglio, one of my subscribers, begged and pleaded for the Roman Szmal paints to be shown in their best light by me doing the swatches on 100% cotton watercolor paper, and she kindly funded it. So super special thank you to her as well. In addition to that, if you're still watching, you are a real MVP, and I really appreciate you. Let me know that you're still watching by telling me what your favorite color is, whether it be one that is swatched out here or one that you feel I have left out. If you've loved this video, then you will definitely love this next one, where I talk through even more Roman Szmal watercolors, as well as the one where I highlight all my favorite art supplies at the moment. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye. Just watch it change. Watch it change. Uh-oh.
No, don't touch.